The tension in Zarathia was palpable. Reports of unrest along the outer sectors had reached the palace, and Thalira could feel the weight of leadership pressing heavily on her shoulders. Citizens looked to her for guidance, and allies awaited her commands. Yet amid the responsibilities and pressures, one presence remained constant: Alex. His calm, steady composure was a contrast to the storm around them, and his presence reminded Thalira that strength could be measured not only in power, but in principle, courage, and understanding. Alex moved through the palace corridors with purpose, observing systems, checking data, and listening to the concerns of advisors and citizens alike. Despite the complexity of the situation, he never faltered, never allowed panic to affect his judgment. He understood that clarity and patience often mattered more than quick action or showy displays of skill. Thalira summoned him to her chambers. The light of Zarathia's twin moons filtered through the high windows, casting silver reflections across the polished floors. She stood in quiet contemplation as Alex entered. "Human," she said, her voice steady. "The situation grows more complex. Rebellion rises in the outer districts and enemies exploit every weakness. You have seen much of my world. Tell me, how do you propose we act?" Alex approached, considering the question carefully. "Your Majesty, the key is strategy combined with observation. We cannot rely on force alone. We must anticipate movements, understand motivations, and act decisively to prevent escalation. A targeted response focused on protecting civilians and maintaining stability will be more effective than widespread force." Thalira nodded. She could sense his insight, the way his human perspective complemented Zarathian knowledge. Few beings, human or alien, could think so clearly under pressure. She realized that his value was not only in intelligence but in integrity. He acted without fear, without desire for reward, and without compromise. His principles guided every decision. Together they devised a plan. Alex analyzed the movement of the rebels and suggested interventions that minimized risk to citizens. Thalira coordinated with her military commanders, ensuring that technology, strategy, and timing aligned perfectly. The combined approach was precise, effective, and careful. The following days were tense. Alex moved between city sectors, monitoring developments, adjusting strategies, and advising on energy distribution, communication, and civilian protection. His ability to anticipate problems, communicate clearly, and act decisively inspired those around him. Citizens saw a human who did not seek glory, yet acted with wisdom, courage, and principle. During one particularly critical moment, an outer district faced a coordinated attack from a faction attempting to exploit the energy disruption. Alex positioned energy barriers, guided defenders, and coordinated with Thalira's forces. He moved with calm determination, never reckless, never hesitant. The attack was repelled without significant casualties, a testament to the combination of human ingenuity and Zarathian power. After the crisis, Thalira met him on the palace balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons shone brightly, reflecting off the towers and casting light across the peaceful streets. She studied him carefully, her expression a mixture of curiosity, respect, and something deeper she could not yet define. "You have done much, human," she said softly. "You act with clarity, courage, and principle, and yet you continue to maintain distance." "Why?" Alex met her gaze evenly. "Your Majesty, my distance is not disrespect. It is integrity. To act rightly, one must observe clearly, without bias, without expectation. Proximity can cloud judgment. My duty requires clarity, not closeness." Thalira considered his words. She had begun to understand that his avoidance was not fear, nor arrogance, nor indifference. It was discipline, principle, and respect, for both himself and her world. Few beings had ever impressed her so deeply without seeking favor, without fear, and without ambition. Days later, a new threat emerged. An enemy fleet approached Zarathia from the outer systems, their intentions unknown but likely hostile. Panic rippled through the city as citizens feared invasion. Thalira convened her council, but Alex spoke first. "Your Majesty, we can predict their movements using orbital scans and trajectory analysis. If we combine Zarathian technology with human strategy, we can create a defensive plan that protects the city and minimizes conflict." Thalira listened intently as he outlined his plan: energy shields to protect critical districts, strategic positioning of defensive units, and targeted communications to confuse and mislead the enemy fleet. Every step emphasized efficiency, protection of civilians, and careful calculation rather than brute force. When the enemy fleet arrived, Alex's plan worked flawlessly. Shields held, defensive units responded with precision, and the invading forces were unable to breach the city's defenses. Citizens watched in awe as their world remained secure, a testament to intelligence, courage, and the combination of human and Zorathian skill. After the battle, Thalira met Alex once more in her private chambers. The intensity of the past days weighed on both of them, yet she felt a quiet sense of admiration and respect for the human who had proven himself again and again. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said softly. "Your courage, your insight, your principle, they surpass anything I expected from a human. And yet you avoid me still. Why?" Alex took a deep breath, knowing that the moment required honesty. "Your Majesty, my actions are guided by principle, not desire for favor or recognition. My distance allows me to act clearly, without expectation, without compromise. That is all I can offer." Thalira studied him silently, then stepped closer. "Human, you're unlike anyone I have known. You act rightly, with courage and clarity, and you do not seek reward. I have observed you, tested you, and watched as you shaped the fate of my world. I respect you. More than I expected. More than I can easily explain." Alex remained calm, meeting her gaze steadily. "Respect is all I wish to earn, Your Majesty. I do not seek more." Thalira smiled faintly, a rare softness in her expression. She realized that this human had not only survived her tests, but had exceeded them. He had demonstrated that humanity's strength lay not only in technology or power, but in clarity, courage, and principle. She felt a growing connection, not one of mere fascination, but of mutual understanding and trust. In the following days, the city recovered fully. Citizens marveled at the human who had acted with wisdom, courage, and integrity in ways that even Zorathians had not anticipated. Thalira observed him quietly, recognizing that he had changed her perspective on humans, leadership, and strength. He was a reminder that power was not measured solely by force, but by clarity, principle, and courage in action. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens under the twin moons, Thalira spoke softly. "You have changed much here, human. You have saved lives, guided decisions, and proven that humanity's strength lies not in weapons or authority, but in clarity and principle, and yet you continue to maintain distance. Why?" Alex looked at her, steady and calm. "Because clarity requires it. My duty is to act rightly, without bias, without expectation. Distance ensures that principle guides action rather than desire, fear, or influence. That is all I can offer." Thalira nodded, understanding fully at last. She realized that his avoidance was not defiance or indifference, but integrity, discipline, and courage, the very qualities she valued most. She felt a deep respect and an unexpected connection growing between them. The days that followed were quieter. Zorathia's citizens continued their lives, the city thriving under the combined guidance of their queen and the human who had earned her trust. Alex continued his work, observing, learning, advising, and acting with clarity and courage. He remained steadfast, disciplined, and principled, a reminder that humanity could stand strong even in a world so alien and powerful. Thalira watched him often, fascinated by his restraint, his honesty, and his courage. She had asked why he avoided her, and in his answer she had found not defiance but integrity. His actions had spoken louder than words, proving that trust, respect, and understanding could be earned through principle, not flattery or fear. As the twin moons of Zorathia rose high in the sky, Thalira reflected on the human who had reshaped her world, not through conquest, but through clarity, courage, and principle. She realized that she no longer needed to test him, question him, or challenge him. He had proven himself beyond doubt, and in that realization, a new understanding emerged between them. It was a connection built not on desire, fear, or expectation, but on respect, trust, and the recognition of strength and principle. Alex had shown her that humanity's true power lay not only in action, but in integrity, observation, and courage. For Thalira, this human was no longer merely a visitor or a subordinate. He was a partner in thought, strategy, and understanding, a being who had earned her trust, her admiration, and her respect. And though he continued to maintain his distance, she no longer felt frustration or curiosity alone. She felt something deeper, the quiet certainty that some bonds were forged not by proximity, but by principle, courage, and clarity of action. As the city of Zarathia slept beneath the twin moons, Alex stood quietly in the palace gardens, observing the lights of the city below. He had acted rightly, remained disciplined, and proven the morning light on Zarathia reflected off the crystalline towers, bathing the palace in a soft golden glow. Alex moved through the halls aware of every whisper, every glance from the alien attendants, and the distant hum of energy flowing through the palace. Today was different. The Queen had summoned him for a private audience. He had expected tests, questions, and perhaps subtle challenges, but he did not yet know how personal her inquiry would become. As he entered the chamber, the floating lights dimmed slightly, signaling the Queen's presence. Thalira rose from her throne, her silver-green skin shimmering in the light. Her gaze was piercing yet not hostile. She studied him with the intensity of someone trying to see inside his mind. "You are punctual," she said, her voice smooth, almost musical. "Good, I do not like to wait. Humans tend to value time differently than we do." Alex inclined his head slightly. "I believe punctuality is a form of respect, Your Majesty." She smiled faintly, a curve that was both approving and teasing. "Respect. Yes, but it is more than mere ritual, is it not? Tell me, why do you continue to avoid me?" Alex had anticipated this question, yet the directness of her gaze made him pause. In her eyes he saw curiosity, amusement, and something harder to define, perhaps a challenge to his very nature. He chose his words carefully. "Your Majesty," he began, "avoiding you is not avoidance in the usual sense. I seek to understand, to observe before I act. My distance is caution tempered by respect. I wish to learn about your world and your people without clouding judgment with personal feelings." Thalira leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing as if weighing the truth of his words. "So you do not fear me?" "Fear is unnecessary," Alex replied calmly. "Understanding is essential. I wish to act correctly, not out of fear, but out of principle." A faint smile curved her lips. She seemed intrigued, even pleased, but her eyes held a glint of something sharp. "Interesting. Most humans are too bold or too timid. You are unusual." Alex sensed a subtle test. The Queen was not merely questioning him. She was probing for honesty, for consistency, for signs of weakness or deceit. He remained steady, aware that every word and gesture mattered. For the next few hours, the Queen engaged him in conversation, alternating between casual inquiries and pointed questions about human society, ethics, and strategies. Alex answered with honesty and caution, revealing enough to communicate humanity's potential, but withholding any information that could compromise his mission or safety. As the session continued, Thalira observed him with increasing intensity. She noticed the way he analyzed every gesture, the subtle calculations behind his words, the careful balance between respect and independence. Few beings could combine humility with such quiet confidence. She felt a spark of curiosity, an urge to understand this human fully. Later, Alex was escorted through the palace gardens, a sprawling expanse filled with plants that shimmered with faint bioluminescence. The air smelled sweet and earthy, carrying a fragrance unlike anything on Earth. Alien birds with translucent wings glided through the air, their song a delicate harmony that resonated with the floating crystals embedded in the garden paths. As he walked, Alex noticed subtle symbols carved into the stones, warnings perhaps or guides for visitors. He realized that every aspect of Zarathia's design carried meaning, and that understanding these details was as crucial as understanding the Queen herself. He paused near a fountain where liquid light cascaded in soft streams. He touched the surface lightly, feeling the gentle hum of energy beneath. The Queen approached silently, her presence commanding yet calm. "You study everything with care," she said. "Even the smallest detail. Most humans would overlook this entirely." Alex turned to face her, meeting her gaze evenly. "Observation is how we survive and succeed. Small details often reveal the largest truths." Thalira regarded him silently for a moment. Then she spoke with a subtle edge, testing him further. "Yet you avoid me still. Most humans would seek favor, proximity, or at least the comfort of attention. You do not. Why?" Alex considered the question, aware of the fine line he walked. One wrong answer could be interpreted as insolence or fear. He chose honesty again. "I respect your position, Your Majesty, but I also respect my own duty and my own judgment. My distance allows me to act without bias, without expectation, without pressure from appearances. I wish to act rightly, not merely to please." The queen's eyes softened slightly. She could sense the weight of his words, the discipline behind his restraint. Unlike most beings she had encountered, he did not seek reward, approval, or power. He acted out of principle. That was rare. Your caution is unusual, she admitted. Yet it is admirable. You are not here to flatter nor to fear. You are here to think, to see clearly, and to act rightly. That is a valuable trait. Alex nodded. Thank you, Your Majesty. I hope it is useful. She studied him in silence, then spoke again, her tone lighter, almost conversational. Tell me, human, have you ever felt alone in your duty? To bear responsibility without guidance, without certainty? Alex paused, recognizing an opportunity to connect on a human level without compromising his mission. Yes, he said carefully. Many times. Responsibility can be heavy, but it teaches clarity, patience, and endurance. I imagine it is the same for you, Your Majesty, though on a far larger scale. A faint smile touched her lips. You surprise me. Few humans would speak so openly about such things, and even fewer would apply the lesson as you do. Throughout the day, Alex continued his careful exploration of the palace, guided by attendants but always maintaining his own pace and judgment. He observed alien technology, noting its efficiency and elegance. Yet he also noticed the ways in which human ingenuity could complement it. He made mental notes of patterns, behaviors, and potential challenges. The queen observed all of this from a distance, sometimes directly, sometimes through subtle monitoring systems embedded in the palace. She could see that Alex was not merely curious. He was calculating, assessing, learning. His restraint, his honesty, his independence, all of it set him apart. And yet he did not flaunt these qualities. They were inherent, natural, and that intrigued her most of all. By evening, Alex found himself in a chamber where holographic maps of Zorathia and its surrounding systems were projected in midair. He studied the layouts, noting areas of strategic importance, potential hazards, and the flow of energy through the planet's cities. Thalira entered silently, observing his work. You understand much, she said. Yet you remain apart from me even as you see so clearly. It is curious. You do not seek power, nor do you seek comfort. You simply are. Alex looked at her, meeting her gaze steadily. I act as I must, Your Majesty. I do not seek reward, nor do I avoid danger unnecessarily. I wish to observe, learn, and act rightly. That is all. For a long moment, Thalira said nothing. She could feel the weight of his words, the truth behind them. Here was a human who did not bend, who did not fear, who did not flatter. And in that moment, she realized that he was more dangerous, in the truest sense, than any adversary she had faced, not because of weapons or armies, but because of clarity, principle, and courage. Finally, she spoke, her tone lighter but still firm. You are unlike any human I have known. I do not yet understand you fully, but I intend to. This is unusual, and it is fascinating. Alex bowed slightly. I am honored, Your Majesty. As he left the chamber that evening, escorted by attendants back to his quarters, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The day had been long, filled with careful observation, dialogue, and subtle tests. He had held his ground, remained honest, and maintained his distance without disrespect. He had made an impression, one that the queen would not soon forget. That night he reflected on the day's events. Zorathia was a place of beauty, intelligence, and power. The queen was formidable, unpredictable, and insightful. And yet he had seen her curiosity, her moments of vulnerability, and her fascination with him. He understood one thing clearly. Trust would not come easily, but it could be earned. And integrity, honesty, and courage, qualities humans often overlooked, might be the key to surviving and thriving in a world so alien and so dangerous. As the stars of Zorathia's twin moons shimmered outside his window, Alex knew that this was only the beginning. The queen's questions, her observations, and her subtle tests would continue. And he would meet them all not with fear, not with flattery, but with clarity, courage, and principle. In the quiet of his quarters, he made a silent promise to observe, to learn, to act rightly, and to prove that humanity could stand on its own, even in a world as strange, powerful, and beautiful as Zorathia. And somewhere deep within the palace, Thalira watched. She did not yet understand this human fully, but she knew one thing. He was different, rare, remarkable, and she wanted to see where his principles, his courage, and his mind would lead. The days that followed on Zorathia were filled with lessons, observations, and small but significant tests. Alex moved carefully through the palace and the surrounding city, learning the rhythms of alien life. He watched as citizens interacted with floating vehicles, energy-based tools, and creatures that seemed as intelligent as humans. He took mental notes, aware that understanding this culture required more than just observation. It required intuition, patience, and humility. Queen Thalira watched him closely. At first, her interest had been curiosity, even amusement at his restraint and honesty. But over time, her fascination deepened. Alex's ability to act with clarity, courage, and principle, without fear or flattery, was unlike anything she had ever seen among humans or Zarathians. He was becoming a puzzle she could not solve easily, and she found that compelling. One afternoon, she summoned him to a training arena. The chamber was vast, with shifting energy barriers and platforms floating above a glowing floor. Thalira moved with fluid grace, demonstrating combat techniques that were both precise and powerful. Alex watched carefully, noting her movements, the way she balanced strength and strategy. He had trained for years in human combat, but this was different. Her style was not merely physical, it was intelligence, observation, and adaptability combined. "Human," she said, her eyes sharp. "Observe closely. Then try. Show me your understanding of movement, timing, and response." Alex nodded. He stepped onto the platform, aware of the eyes of attendants and the distant hum of energy. He mirrored her movements as best he could, relying on human reflexes, agility, and adaptability. At first, his motions were imperfect, but he learned quickly, adjusting with every misstep, observing Thalira's fluidity, and applying it in ways his body could manage. Thalira's expression shifted subtly. She was impressed, not merely with his physical ability, but with his capacity to learn, adapt, and respect the form without fear or hesitation. She had expected many humans to fail or falter in arrogance, but Alex's determination and integrity were remarkable. After the session, she approached him, her voice calm but probing. "You are quick to learn, yet you maintain restraint. Most humans would either attack recklessly or hesitate in fear. You do neither. Why?" Alex wiped sweat from his brow, choosing his words carefully. "Your Majesty, understanding requires balance. Too much haste leads to error. Too much caution leads to inaction. I seek neither. I act when I must, with awareness and principle guiding me." Thalira studied him, her lips curling in a faint smile. "You speak wisely. Few beings, human or Zarathian, can articulate such clarity. You do not seek praise, nor do you avoid challenge. You simply act rightly." Over the next several days, Alex accompanied the Queen on walks through the city, observing politics, trade, and daily life. He noted subtle gestures of respect and power, the way citizens deferred to certain officials, and the ways in which technology and strategy shaped everyday existence. He asked questions not to impress but to understand, showing respect for the culture while maintaining his own perspective. Thalira watched silently, sometimes from a distance, sometimes by his side. She noticed how he treated others with fairness, patience, and attention. He did not command respect through fear or authority, yet people listened. He did not seek advantage, yet he was effective. It was a rare combination, one that intrigued her more each day. One evening, the Queen led Alex to a chamber that overlooked the city. The light of Zarathia's twin moons cast a shimmering glow across the towers and gardens. Thalira stood beside him, silent for a moment, letting him take in the view. "Human," she said finally, her voice soft, almost contemplative. "Do you understand the weight of leadership, the decisions that affect thousands, even millions, the responsibility of knowing that one choice can save or destroy lives?" Alex nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty. On Earth, leaders face similar burdens, though perhaps not as complex. Responsibility teaches clarity, patience, and endurance. It is a heavy burden, but it also reveals strength." Thalira's eyes softened slightly. "Few humans understand such weight. Even fewer acknowledge it without complaint or fear. You are unusual in more ways than one." Alex remained silent, letting his honesty speak without embellishment. He had learned that silence often carried as much meaning as words, especially in the presence of someone so perceptive. Days turned into weeks. Alex became a familiar presence in the palace, though he continued to maintain his distance, careful not to overstep boundaries. He repaired failing technology, assisted in planning exercises, and offered strategies in situations where human ingenuity could complement Zorathian methods. Each time the Queen observed him closely, noting how he combined intellect with integrity. One afternoon, a situation arose that would test both human and alien. A malfunction in the city's energy grid threatened to destabilize several districts. Alex was called to assess the situation. He studied the system, tracing the fault through layers of complex technology. His human perspective allowed him to see a solution that had been overlooked by Zorathian engineers. With careful adjustments and precise timing, he restored stability to the grid, preventing what could have been a disaster. Thalyra watched from a control chamber above, her eyes narrowing with focus. When the system stabilized, she allowed herself a small smile. She had witnessed many solutions, many strategies, and many displays of skill. Yet Alex's success was different. It was not brute strength nor raw power. It was understanding, observation, and clarity of mind. Later, she summoned him to her private chambers. "Human," she said, "you solve problems with precision, yet you remain apart from me even as you prove your worth. Why do you maintain this distance?" Alex considered her question carefully. He knew that revealing his deeper motives could create tension or misinterpretation. "Your Majesty," he said finally, "my distance is not disrespect. It is principle. I must observe and act without bias, without personal influence clouding judgment. Respect and understanding require clarity, not proximity." Thalyra's expression softened. She could sense the honesty in his words, the discipline behind his restraint. "You are unlike any human I have known," she admitted. "Most seek reward, comfort, or favor. You seek only understanding. That is rare, and it is admirable." Over the following days, Alex continued his work balancing observation with action. He repaired equipment, analyzed strategies, and assisted in training exercises. Each interaction, each decision revealed more of his integrity, courage, and intelligence. He did not seek recognition, yet he gained respect from the Queen, from her advisors, and from the citizens who observed his actions. Thalyra found herself drawn to him not by attraction but by fascination. His honesty, clarity, and principle challenged her understanding of humans and of leadership. She began to question her assumptions, to reconsider the qualities she valued, and to wonder what other lessons this human might offer. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Thalyra spoke quietly. "Human, you have changed my perspective in ways I did not anticipate. Your restraint, your integrity, your courage. It is unlike anything I have encountered. You do not fear me, yet you do not seek to please. You act rightly. Why?" Alex met her gaze steadily. "Because it is the only way I know. To act rightly, without fear, without expectation, without compromise. That is how I navigate the world, Your Majesty. That is how I serve humanity, and how I hope to respect your people." Thalyra's eyes lingered on him, absorbing his words. They were simple yet profound. They carried honesty, principle, and courage. She realized that this human was not just remarkable in skill, but in character. As the moons of Zorathia rose, casting soft light across the gardens, Thalyra spoke again, her voice softer now, tinged with wonder. "You avoid me, yet you teach me. You remain apart, yet you change my world. Human, I do not yet understand you fully, but I wish to. This is unusual, and it is compelling." Alex nodded, recognizing the delicate balance they had achieved. He maintained his distance, but he had earned her respect. He had acted rightly, observed carefully, and proven that humanity's strength lay not merely in technology or power, but in clarity, courage, and principle. And so their delicate relationship continued, one of observation, respect, and growing mutual fascination. Alex moved carefully through the world of Zorathia, aware that every action, every decision, and every word carried weight. Thalyra watched him, intrigued by a human who dared to act with integrity in a world where many relied on flattery, fear, or cunning. Their story was no longer just about observation and survival. It was about understanding, trust, and the beginning of a connection built on principle, courage, and mutual respect. And though the path ahead would be filled with challenges, dangers, and uncertainties, both human and Queen knew that they had already taken the first steps towards something extraordinary. The city of Zorathia was alive with energy, its towers shimmering under the light of twin moons. Alex moved through the streets alongside Queen Thalyra, observing the balance of technology, culture, and strategy that held the alien civilization together. Citizens paused to watch them, sensing the humans' unusual presence beside their queen. He did not command armies, nor did he display power in ways the citizens expected. Yet he carried himself with confidence and clarity that drew attention quietly but powerfully. Thalira had begun to see him not merely as a visitor, but as someone who could offer insight, courage, and perspective. His restraint and honesty were rare qualities, and she found herself intrigued by his influence without him even trying. She noticed the way he studied situations before acting, the way he approached problems not with force, but with intelligence and care. That evening, an urgent message arrived from the city's energy control center. A major disruption threatened to destabilize several districts simultaneously. Panic was beginning to rise among the citizens, and the Queen's advisors scrambled to respond. Thalira turned to Alex. "Human, your observations may be of use. Will you accompany me?" Alex nodded and followed her to the control center. The room was a hive of activity, floating panels displaying energy flow, attendants calling out readings, and alarms flashing in muted colors. The energy grids that sustained the city's towers were delicate, and the disruption had the potential to cause widespread damage. Alex approached the main panel, analyzing the system carefully. He traced the fault through layers of interconnected nodes, noting the points of instability that the Zarathian engineers had overlooked. His human perspective allowed him to see patterns and solutions they had missed. "Your Majesty," he said, "the problem is not the generators themselves, but the feedback loops in the distribution network. They are out of sync. If we adjust the timing and reroute energy temporarily, we can stabilize the system." Thalira observed silently as he worked, her eyes narrowing in focus. The attendants executed his instructions, guided by his calculations. Slowly, the energy grid stabilized, the lights of the city returning to normal and the alarm systems quieting. Citizens watching from below cheered, though they were careful not to show disrespect to the Queen. Once the crisis was resolved, Thalira summoned Alex to her private chambers. "You acted decisively, accurately, and without hesitation," she said. "Few humans and few Zarathians could have done this. Why do you maintain your distance even as you prove your worth?" Alex took a moment to consider his response. He knew honesty was his strongest tool. "Your Majesty, my distance is a form of respect and clarity. I act to observe, learn, and assist without bias or expectation. Proximity can cloud judgment, and I cannot allow personal influence to interfere with my duties." The Queen studied him intently, her curiosity deepening. "Your reasoning is unusual. You are not afraid, yet you do not seek favor. You are strong, yet you are not boastful. You act rightly, even when observation alone could be safer. This challenges me." Alex nodded slightly. "I have learned that principle and understanding matter more than recognition or fear. This allows decisions to be made clearly without compromise." Thalira's expression softened. She realized that this human was not just skilled, but disciplined, principled, and courageous. He did not seek reward, approval, or power, qualities that often complicated leadership. His presence reminded her that integrity, observation, and courage could be as powerful as any weapon or strategy. Over the next several days, Alex worked alongside Zarathian engineers, helping to improve energy distribution, city planning, and defensive strategies. His human ingenuity complemented their technology, creating solutions that neither species could have achieved alone. The Queen observed him closely, noticing not just his skill, but his humility, his careful judgment, and his ability to act decisively when necessary. One evening, Thalira invited Alex to a secluded terrace overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected on the crystal towers, casting shimmering light across the streets below. The city seemed peaceful, but both knew that danger could arise at any moment. "You have changed the course of today," she said softly. "You prevent disaster without seeking reward, and yet you continue to maintain distance. Why?" Alex looked out at the city, considering the words carefully. "Your Majesty, I do not seek reward because it is not necessary. I maintain distance because clarity requires it. To act rightly, one must see clearly, without personal influence, fear, or desire. That is the only way I know." Thalira nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She could feel the truth behind them, the honesty and discipline that defined his character. Few beings, human or Zorathian, had ever displayed such clarity and courage without expectation or fear. Days later, an urgent message arrived from a border station. Reports indicated that a hostile faction was moving towards Zorathia, exploiting the city's recent energy disruption as a distraction. The Queen immediately called her council, but Alex spoke first. "Your Majesty," he said, "we can predict their movements and prepare a strategy that combines human adaptability with Zorathian technology. If we act quickly, we can prevent casualties and maintain control without unnecessary conflict." The Queen's eyes narrowed with interest. "Go on." Alex outlined a detailed plan integrating surveillance data, energy redistribution, and tactical positioning. His approach emphasized efficiency, foresight, and minimal risk to civilians. The Queen listened intently, recognizing the depth of his understanding and the subtle brilliance of his strategy. When the plan was executed, it succeeded beyond expectation. The hostile faction was intercepted without widespread violence, their movements anticipated and countered by a combination of human ingenuity and Zorathian power. Citizens watched in awe as the city remained secure, a testament to the combined intelligence and courage of two very different species. After the crisis, Thalira called Alex to her private chambers. She was silent for a long moment, observing him with an intensity that made him steady his breath. "You are remarkable," she said finally, "not because of strength or fearlessness or skill, but because you act with clarity, courage, and principle. You do not seek reward, you do not fear consequences, and yet you succeed where others might fail." Alex bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, I act as I must. Observation, understanding, and principle guide my actions." "That is all." Thalira studied him, a mixture of admiration and curiosity in her gaze. "Few humans or anyone possess such integrity. And yet you avoid me still. Most would seek recognition, comfort, or favor. You do not. Why?" Alex met her gaze steadily. "Because I must remain true to my own principles. Distance allows clarity, respect, and honesty to guide my actions. I cannot act rightly if influenced by expectation or proximity." The Queen's expression softened. She could sense the weight of his words, the honesty, and the discipline behind them. Few beings had ever spoken with such clarity, and even fewer lived according to it. She realized that this human's avoidance was not arrogance or fear. It was integrity, courage, and principle. In the days that followed, the Queen allowed Alex more freedom within the palace and city. She began observing him not as a subordinate or visitor, but as a partner in thought, strategy, and problem-solving. She tested him in small ways, offering challenges that required both intelligence and moral judgment. Each time Alex responded with clarity and honesty, proving not only his skill but the strength of his character. Through these interactions, Thalira began to see humans in a new light. They were not merely unpredictable, sometimes foolish or weak. Some, like Alex, could act with courage, intelligence, and principle that rivaled even the most accomplished Zorathians. She realized that humanity's strength was not in brute force but in clarity, adaptability, and integrity. One evening as they walked through the palace gardens, Thalira spoke softly, almost to herself. "You avoid me, human. Yet you teach me. You remain apart. Yet you change my world. Why do you not seek favor yet succeed so greatly?" Alex considered her words carefully. "Because favor is unnecessary. Success is measured not by recognition, but by the rightness of action, and clarity comes only with distance and honesty." The Queen's eyes lingered on him. His words were simple yet profound. They carried truth, principle, and courage, the very qualities she had begun to value above all else. She realized that he was not just a visitor, not just a human. He was a reflection of the qualities she had long admired but rarely encountered. Clarity, courage, and integrity in action, and so their relationship continued, one of observation, respect, and growing fascination. Alex moved carefully through the palace, aware that every choice, every word, and every gesture mattered. Thalira watched him, intrigued by a human who acted with principle in a world where flattery, fear, and cunning often dominated. As the moons of Zorathia cast silver light across the palace, both understood that their connection was changing. It was no longer simply about duty, observation, or survival. It was about respect, understanding, and the subtle beginnings of trust between two very different beings. And though challenges lay ahead, Both human and queen knew that they had begun a journey that could reshape not only their lives, but the future of two worlds. Alex's shuttle descended through the purple haze of Zorathia's atmosphere, its engines cutting through the heavy clouds like a knife. Outside the viewport, he saw jagged cliffs and immense towers rising from the ground, glowing faintly with alien energy. The planet was unlike anything he had ever seen, a mix of sharp beauty and quiet danger. Every detail spoke of a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity. Yet, despite the grandeur, a subtle tension lingered in the air. He could feel it in the vibration of the shuttle and the low hum of energy flowing through the city below. The shuttle touched down on a wide landing platform, its surface polished and reflecting the violet sky. A group of alien attendants approached, their skin shimmering in shades of green and blue with elongated limbs and eyes that seemed to pierce into the soul. They spoke in a melodic language, but a translator embedded in Alex's suit converted it instantly into English. "Welcome, human," said one, bowing slightly. "Queen Thalira awaits you." Alex straightened, adjusting his uniform. He had trained for years for this mission, yet now that he stood on Zorathia, he felt the weight of the task pressing down on him. He was not here as a soldier nor as a politician. He was an observer, a representative of humanity tasked with understanding this alien world and its ruler. His instructions were clear: stay neutral, gain knowledge, and avoid unnecessary entanglements. As the shuttle doors opened, Alex stepped out. The air was heavy but breathable, carrying a scent that reminded him faintly of burning metal and fresh rain. The attendants led him through wide corridors of polished crystal and metal, walls glowing with faint glyphs of alien writing. Every step he took echoed softly, the sound mingling with distant hums of energy. He noticed intricate carvings of battles, celebrations, and strange creatures, records of history he could not yet interpret. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors. They slid open silently, revealing a large chamber bathed in golden light. At the far end, seated on a throne that seemed to float slightly above the ground, was the alien queen. She was a vision of elegance and authority, her skin a shimmering silver green, her eyes deep and knowing. Her presence was commanding, yet there was a subtle softness in her gaze as she regarded him. "Human," she said, her voice melodic but firm. "You're far from home." Alex bowed slightly, keeping his posture formal. "Yes, Your Majesty. I have traveled many light years to be here. I am honored by your invitation." The queen inclined her head, studying him. "I have observed your kind from afar. Humans are unpredictable. Some are brave, some foolish, some wise, others reckless. Tell me, which are you?" Alex's heart beat faster, but he remained calm. "I am only here to observe and learn, Your Majesty. I hope my presence can be of service to our understanding of your people." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment Alex felt as if she could see through him entirely. He could sense curiosity, skepticism, and something he could not name. A challenge, perhaps. She spoke again. "Then why do you keep your distance? Other envoys would kneel, flatter, and speak only what they think I wish to hear. You do not." "You remain apart, cautious yet present." "Why?" Alex hesitated. He had anticipated this question, but finding the words was harder than he expected. He could not reveal everything. The truth of his mission, the calculations and strategies running through his mind, the way he measured every interaction for safety. So he spoke carefully. "My caution is not disrespect, Your Majesty," he said. "It is understanding. I believe that respect sometimes begins with distance, so that one may see clearly before acting." The queen's expression changed subtly. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze intensifying. "Interesting," she said. "Most humans would call that fear. But I sensed something different in you." Alex did not respond. He simply nodded, keeping his tone neutral, his body composed. This was a game of observation, not of words. He had learned that sometimes silence carried more weight than speech. For the next hour, the attendants guided him through the palace, showing him the halls, the gardens, and the chambers where alien scholars worked on technology beyond human comprehension. Everywhere he looked, there was beauty, intelligence, and power. Yet he maintained his distance, speaking only when necessary, asking questions only when he needed to understand. The queen watched him from afar, intrigued. Later, in a smaller chamber filled with floating lights and transparent walls, the queen approached him directly. Alex's instincts told him this was a test. She stood before him, her presence overwhelming but calm. "You do not fear me," she said softly, "yet you avoid me. Most humans would do one or the other. Why do you choose both?" Alex met her gaze steadily. "Your Majesty, I respect your position and your power. I also respect myself and my duty. Avoiding you is not fear, it is careful observation. I wish to understand before I act." The Queen studied him in silence, a faint smile playing on her lips. She could sense his honesty, his restraint, and the way he weighed every word and gesture. It was rare. Few beings in the galaxy possessed such clarity of mind, and fewer still acted without desire for personal gain or fear of consequence. "Humans are unusual," she said finally. "You do not conform to my expectations, that is refreshing." Alex nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement. He knew that gaining the Queen's trust would be a slow process, but he also knew that this was the first step. His mission was not to charm or deceive, but to observe, learn, and survive while navigating a world so different from his own. As he retired to his assigned quarters, he reflected on what had just occurred. The Queen was curious, powerful, and unpredictable. Yet she was not cruel, at least not to him. He realized that Zorathia was a place of paradoxes: immense beauty and danger, wisdom and ruthlessness, tradition and innovation. To succeed here, he would need to balance respect with independence, observation with action, and caution with courage. That night, Alex could not sleep easily. He reviewed every detail of his meeting with the Queen, replaying her words, her gestures, and the way she had studied him. He understood one thing clearly. He was not just a visitor. He was a puzzle to be solved, a human mind that the Lyra had not encountered before. And for someone as powerful as her, being seen as a puzzle was both a risk and a form of influence. He also understood that his distance, his restraint, and his careful observation had already begun to make an impression. The Queen's curiosity was piqued. She would watch him, probe him, and perhaps even challenge him, and he would need to remain vigilant, clever, and honest. For on Zorathia, honesty was rare and cunning was everywhere. Yet if he played his part well, he could do more than survive. He could teach, learn, and perhaps change the way the Queen viewed humans forever. Morning came with a faint shimmer across the palace towers. Alex rose, stretching and preparing for another day filled with observation, analysis, and cautious interactions. He knew the Queen would test him again in ways subtle and overt. And he knew that every decision, every word, and every gesture mattered. Zorathia was a world where even a small misstep could have enormous consequences. Yet despite the weight of the task, Alex felt a strange calm. He had come far from Earth to a world of mystery and danger, but he was ready. He would continue to walk the fine line between respect and distance, observation and action, fear and courage, and he would do so with one thought in mind: to prove in word and deed that humanity was capable of more than the galaxy had ever imagined. The Queen, somewhere in the palace, watched him. Her curiosity had turned into intrigue. Here was a human unlike any she had known, cautious but fearless, respectful but independent, ordinary yet remarkable. And as Alex moved through the halls that day, the Queen whispered to herself, a note of wonder in her voice. "Why does he avoid me? And yet, why do I feel drawn to understand him?" And thus began the delicate dance between human and Queen, a story of observation, integrity, and the first seeds of trust. A story that would test courage, morality, and the boundaries of two very different worlds.